Hidden deep within the woods in the New Hampshire town of Chesterfield lies the foundation of an imposing stone chateau that was once a summer destination for New York City socialites. Now all that remains is a staircase leading nowhere and the story of its mysterious mistress.
When I first came to the site, I quickly began to want to investigate what's the story? What was this place all about? Who is Madame Sherri?
Madame Antoinette Sherri was born in France in 1878. And from the very beginning, her welcoming into this world was a story larger than life. Legend has it that a mysterious corkscrew of lights danced over the Paris skyline for several nights following her birth, a story she welcomed with open arms. She was brought up on the stage, and by her late 20s, Sherri had become a reputable theatrical singer and dancer. Then, while performing one evening, Sherri captured the attention of a young man, Anthony Macaluso.
Anthony Macaluso was an American expatriate in France who was using the pseudonym Andre Riella. He has links to organized crime, to bootleggers, allegedly to Al Capone, and that's who Madame Sherri married.
Sherri and Riella immediately hit it off, but by 1911, the couple was finished with the Paris scene and set their sights on the bright lights of Broadway. They set up a small theatrical costume shop, which quickly blossomed into a thriving vaudeville business that produced one outlandish outfit after the next.
She had a protege, Charles Lemaire, who won Oscar awards for his work with 20th Century Fox, and he learned costuming from her.
Business was booming, and Sherri was at the center of it all. Her name became synonymous with the New York City party scene, as the two circulated around town as part of the inner Broadway circle. But the good times could only last so long.
It's the 1920s. Fast times, bathtub gin, liquor. He ends up in a New York sanitarium and dies at the age of 27.
Madame Sherri was devastated. The bright lights of Broadway had lost their luster, a painful reminder of her late husband Andre. And so when her close friend and actor Jack Henderson invites her to stay at his home in Chesterfield, New Hampshire, she knew she had found her refuge.
She falls in love with this quiet setting. She came here to write the next act of her life story, and it involved buying a farm and building a castle.
In 1929, just after the stock market crashed, Sherri purchases 600 acres of land and began designing an elaborate summer home. With financial backing from her protege, Charles Lemaire, construction began, but she baffled workers who were never handed any blueprints. Instead, she simply put sticks in the ground to mark the foundation. She was said to be demanding, often telling workers how to do their jobs. But when construction was complete in 1931, what rose from the forest floor was a sight to behold.
She would meet her guests at the train station in Brattleboro, and they would ride here in a chauffeured, cream-colored Packard touring car. When they would disembark, they would approach this site to this imposing facade. You would have seen this Roman arch staircase, the Primrose Path, some people called it, a third floor of bedrooms and balcony, maple trees growing up through in the interior of the house, lavish furnishings, oriental rugs, ornate, heavy wooden furniture. The house was architecturally anomalous to Chesterfield, New Hampshire.
Madame Sherri finally had her own elaborate stage that was ready for opening night. She hosted extravagant and raucous parties, often lasting all day and going late into the night. She had numerous young male and female acquaintances and constantly chain-smoked, claiming to light only one match a day. It was as if the Roaring Twenties had never ended, but it didn't take long for unseemly rumors to start spreading around town. Some say she would drive her Packard car around town wearing only her fur coat with nothing on underneath. Whispers that her chateau was actually a brothel, and that Madame Sherri was a real-life madam began to surface. And some even claimed that the hideaway was a safe house for New York City mobsters.
The rumors growed, and she didn't do anything to dissuade them. Who is this woman? This beautiful woman, this Madame Antoinette Sherri? Where is she from? Who are these young men? She loved the reputation.
Sherri remained an enigma to the community and continued her ways throughout the Great Depression. But by the end of the Second World War, the parties died down, and Charles Lemaire stopped sending checks. Penniless and alone, Sherri quickly tried to change her fortune. Her bid to turn the chateau into a nightclub failed, and since she hadn't worked in over 20 years, she was ineligible for Social Security benefits. The eccentric woman who was once so full of life was now nearly destitute.
There's a sadness about this site, her life, and the decline of her fortunes. She did not want people to know what became of her. When people figured out the connection and asked her if she could ask her wealthy New York acquaintances to help support her, she said they must never know what happened to Madame Sherri.
Sherri still clung to the hope that one day her chateau would return to its former glory, but her story would soon take another tragic turn.
The house was vandalized in October of 1959. Somebody had come through and slashed tapestries, smashed the grand piano, basically ransacked the house. She walked through the rooms sobbing. She was devastated. She never came back to this place.
And in 1962, her home was engulfed in flames and burnt to the ground. The foundation and the stone staircase was all that remained. When a local man reached out to inform Sherri about what happened to the chateau, she simply asked, what did they say about Madame Sherri? Her protege, Lemaire, foreclosed on the property. And the infamous Packard, the only remaining asset Sherri had, was sold to an Ohio collector in 1963, with the proceeds only making a small dent in the debts that she owed. But on September 10th, 1965, an artist from Vermont named Anne Stokes bought the property from Lemaire, with hopes of turning the land into an artist community.
A month after Anne Stokes purchased the property, she called on Madame Sherri in Brattleboro to tell her about her vision for the future of the property, and all Madame Sherri could say is, just tell me something to make me happy.
6 weeks later, Madame Antoinette Sherri passed away at the age of 87, and the truth behind the rumors of her lavish life would forever remain a mystery.
In many ways, her legacy, her story is bigger than life itself. Charles Lemaire said she was different to everyone who knew her.
For the next 40 years, Stokes kept the tradition of Sherri alive by holding performances, concerts, and parties within the ruins of the chateau. And in 1991, she turned the land over to the New Hampshire Forest Society, who still protects the site to this day.
Ultimately, Madame Sherri's chateau was essentially the stage set for a production in which she was the star. Her theatrical legacy lives on in the rubble of a place whose vision was never fully realized in her lifetime.